Howdy gang, hope you're all having a fantastic day. So a while back I wrote a track and recorded it entirely on my iPad and using this, the Hotone JOGG, which is an audio interface which plugs into your computer, Mac or iPad as well. It does a fabulous job. So initially I thought, yeah, I'll just record some guitars with this thing because that's what it's designed for. It's kind of, Hotone, guitar centric. Anyways, I ended up doing everything on my iPad. The drums, the bass, the mix, everything. Yeah, and it sounded awesome. I enjoyed it so much and I loved the sound so much. I actually did a comparison video between the sound of the iPad and a mic'd guitar amp, which was really cool to do, and just both sounded fantastic. I really thought the sound that I got out of the iPad with this and my guitar and all the apps that I used on here were just fabulous. And as a mobile recording rig, it really made kind of a lot of sense and just beautiful to use, really easy. And just as a mobile recording rig, I think it performed absolutely fantastically well. So I wanted to show you exactly what I did with the drums, the guitars, the bass, the mix, everything. So I am going to switch over to my iPad and show you exactly what I did. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Yeah. First thing to do is to plug the JOGG into the iPad. For this you will need a camera connection kit, lightning cable. I have one of the older ones which I bought years ago, so this one doesn't have a charge port on it, but the newer ones I understand do. So you're going to need that. Also going to need power to the pedal itself, because it does need to be powered when it's running an iOS device. And when you plug this into a computer, you can run it on bus power as well. But for the iPad, you do need the 9-volt power supply or a battery pack or something like that. The next thing you'll need is a USB cable to plug into the JOGG pedal and then connect up to the camera connection kit. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to plug this into the back here. It's a USB micro, and then just going into a regular USB that goes into there. And that plugs into my lightning port there. Then the power goes into the JOGG pedal and it lights up nice and green. Now all this does is bypasses it. If you press it, it doesn't really do anything else. Now you obviously need a guitar cable to go into it, into the in here. Then there are two ways to hook this up to speakers. There's a left and right output, so if you have powered speakers you can plug them directly into here, just like a regular audio interface. What I did was I actually used a jack to go into the headphone socket here and then plug into my mixer, which is off screen over there somewhere, and then power the speakers, which I actually have in my studio. But you can actually hook this up to, let's say, like a portable speaker or to headphones or something like that, and then monitor through there. So they're the basic connections, and that's all done. Okay, I'm going to go over to my iPad now and show you the screen and show you exactly what I did to create the drum track, to record the guitars, the software that I used to record the guitars, and also all the mixing and stuff like that. Alright, so I'm over on my iPad here, and I did all of the work on this. Initially I actually just recorded the guitars because I'd done the drums on my Mac via Easy Drummer, which was easy to do. But then I got thinking, you know what, I should do everything on the iPad. So I went ahead and purchased X Drummer, which is by Positive Grid. I had heard about this, hadn't tried it, and checked out some videos, and it kind of looked cool, so I went ahead and purchased it and decided to do the drum track in here. Now, the process was longer than it would have taken me in Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer, but it was a cool process to go through, and I managed to do everything on the iPad, which is exactly what I wanted to do, because for a mobile rig, I'm not going to have access to Easy Drummer or Superior or anything like that. So I'm glad I learned how to use this. So this works on the basis of kind of loops and stuff, so you can kind of search through styles and basically kind of hit the rock button, and let's say you want to check out this beat here. So you can do things like that and then actually go into the patterns themselves, and it has a ton of patterns which are built in also. So I was doing it in the rock genre. So I went over to rock and checked out some of the things here. And you know, it has a lot of stuff. It's organized really, really well. So you've got verses, intros, choruses. And some of the process was actually just going through these and finding the patterns which actually worked for my song. Now, there was nothing which was exactly right the way through, so I did have to chop it up. Now, how this works is you basically drag it into this timeline here, which is at the bottom, and then basically what you can do is zoom into it and manipulate it. So initially, you know, if I show you the drum track which I created, you know, for the first few bars, it's just one of the beats that I found which worked for the song, and then I had to chop it up here because I was playing on the push. So I was playing just before the first beat of the next bar. It's just part of my playing style, so I've got to compensate for these things so that the drums sound like they're actually melding with what I'm playing. So what I did was I just went to the beginning of one of these bars here, and basically there was a kick and a cymbal hit, which is exactly what I wanted. And then I zoomed in as much as I could down here, and then when you click onto it, you get these little markers here where you can actually manipulate the size of the actual loop there. So doing that, I basically made a little loop to go at the beginning of the next one, and I basically did it like that. Now, one of the other things that I did was I actually imported my guitar track, which I'd already recorded, to the Easy Drummer track that I'd done, into the session here. So if I kind of unmute this track here, you'll hear that my guitars are on there. Now, this actually helped me to really tighten up the drum pattern. And usually what I do is when I work on my Mac, initially I lay down a very basic track. And this is exactly what I would have done here as well. And then when I was done recording the guitars, I go into the drum track again and put the accents in the correct places of where I'm playing my accents on my guitar. And what this does is it ties the drums to my guitar track and vice versa, so that both are working together. It sounds like both have been written in a room with multiple musicians, essentially. But I'm obviously doing it, you know, myself. But there's a little tip for you. There's a little production tip. Once you're done recording your guitars, you can always go back in if you've got programmed drums and put the accents to work with your guitar part or your bass part, or your keyboard part, whatever you're playing. So basically I went through it like that, and you know, in the places I needed to, I zoomed in as much as I could and put the hits where they needed to be. And then, you know, I did things like put fills in. So this little one here in red is actually a fill. Just a ticker. So if I mute the guitar track, and that then goes into the next section. And basically I went through it. Now, one of the pernickety things about this is you can only zoom in so far. So I would have loved to have zoomed in more than I have done here, but I wasn't able to do that. So actually doing the sizes of the these little beats here was a little bit tricky to do, and I would have liked to have them slightly smaller. So that was one of the kind of, I guess, downsides of using this. The other thing was I couldn't just copy multiple loops and paste them. So I could kind of do this and then copy that and then paste it somewhere else, or duplicate it, but I couldn't select multiples and then do that, which is a much easier way to do it when you're programming multiple sections and then changing things, let's say in the second part of the intro or the verse or the chorus, doing a different fill or something like that. So that was the one thing that I didn't like about it, and it's one of the reasons it actually took longer to program the whole thing than it would have if I had the copy and paste function for multiple loops there. But once I had it done, it sounded great, and I had my drum track, which was done in Xdrummer. And it sounded great. Now, the sounds in Xdrummer are really good, but I wanted to manipulate them a little bit further. I wanted to mix the kick and the snare and the hi-hat. I wanted the ability to do that. So I went on to YouTube and found a video which a guy had done where he showed how to do this, and it was absolutely awesome, and I'm going to pass on the tip to you guys. So essentially, I have a full kit which is running here at the moment. The kick, snare, hi-hats, cymbals, everything, all going, and you know, everything's working. So I don't remember the name of the guy. I'll link it in the description box below if I can find the video again, because he was very helpful, and shout out to that guy for showing this. So what he had done is set up multiple versions of the kit that he had created, and then he basically just had one element playing in those kits. So what I did was I duplicated the kit that I had created, and I'd customized the kit to, you know, sound like the way I wanted it to. And then the duplicates, what I did was I actually created kits which just had individual elements in them. So I've got cymbals, cymbals 2, cymbals 3, and these were actually just individual cymbals. So the left hand cymbal, so if I play this, and likewise with the second cymbal, I did the same thing. And the reason I did that was because there are two cymbals on the kit, and I wanted to pan one left, one right, so that it would have more of a stereo trace on it. Hi-hat as well. And the kick drum. The ride cymbal, which is doing nothing at this point. And the snare. And then the toms as well, which are doing nothing again at this point in the track. But basically this gave me ultimate control over it. So what you do with this is you select the part. So I've got cymbals 2 selected here, and then when you go back to the project, you can actually export it. And when you hit the export, you can export it as an audio file, which is what I did. Now, what this did was it created individual tracks for the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, each cymbal, the toms, and the ride cymbal. So I then had multiple tracks which I could put into Auria, which I was using as my digital audio workstation, my DAW, and then mix them and manipulate the sounds as I wanted to hear them, and also apply compression and stuff like that. So that was the process of creating the drum sounds. I'm going to flick over to Auria now so that I can show you what I did in Auria. So Auria is a fully fledged recording software. It has all the tools that you need to get recording and mixing, and it also it connects with other apps that you have. So if you're a guitar player with things like amp sims and things like that, which is what I used to create the sounds in this. So you have a couple of displays. This is the mixer display that you can see right here, and then you have the waveform display as well. So like I said, I had actually created separate tracks for the drums. So as you can see, there's a kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, cymbals and ride. And then I could individually EQ them in order to sound the way I wanted. So with, let's say, the kick drum, I wanted a little bit more of the beta to come through and some more low end. So when I show you the mixing, I'll show you how I did that. Then I had the bass track there, which I actually recorded with Ampltube as well. Used the Ampeg plugin for that. And then my guitar tracks as well. Now, as you can see down here as well, Auria actually lets you do track automation as well. So this allowed me to do fades and things like that at the end of tracks, and then bring the tracks back in so that the tracks were quiet when they weren't playing and things like that. Or if there was some noise at the beginning of the track, then I could actually deal with that and do all the things that I would usually do on my Mac. Now, with Auria, you can have multiple audio tracks as well. So I basically created numerous tracks in order to do my rhythm guitars, then my clean guitars, my lead guitar parts, and I did harmonies for my lead guitars. So I have the two harmonies here, and then I had the other lines which I did down here, and also just little fills and things, little harmonies that I'd done at the end of various tracks. So it really gave me a lot of control over what I did. So like I said, I used Ampltube to do my guitar parts. And basically how you do this in Auria is you go into the mixer section here, and then you have the channel strip here. And when I click onto the channel strip here, I've got access to all of the plugins that I have. Now I was using the Hotone JOGG, and Hotone actually have their own amp sim software which is called V-Stomp Amp, which is really good. It sounds great. I was getting a little bit of latency on it, so I decided to go with Ampltube, which I know really, really well, and I like the sounds of that. I also have Bias Amp and Bias FX, etc., etc. But you know, Ampltube is my favorite sounding one. So all I did was clicked onto Ampltube, and it basically loaded up. And you can probably hear on the DAW that my voice is currently going through an Engel amplifier. Yeah! So I can do a guitar solo, can't I? If I turn up the master. So what I'll do is I'll turn the volume down there so you're not hearing my voice distorted through this amplifier. But it sounded cool, didn't it? Anyways, this now feeds back into Auria. So it will record the full signal chain which I have going on here in Auria. Now the first amplifier that I actually recorded wasn't the Engel. I actually used that as my second guitar part. My go-to amp is the Soldano here. So I will turn down the volume on that as well so that I'm not distorting through the Soldano. Alrighty, so the Soldano was the first one that I loaded up, and I basically just did the settings, which sounded good. I can't remember what I did. Overdrive was probably like somewhere around here. Because, you know, more overdrive, we need it. And then I had some boost pedals and stuff, which I didn't use for the rhythm guitars, but I basically put them on for the lead guitar parts. And I think I used the TS style one quite a lot, but I also used the T-Rex pedal, which I have here as well, for some of the tracks. And for the clean guitar, I actually had the compressor on, and also for the bass track as well. It worked really well for all of that. Now the nice thing about Ampltube is that you can have post effects as well. Now I had these switched off when I was recording so that I could add in the reverb and delay when I did the mix, and that gave me more control over the reverb and the delay signals. So these were switched off when I was doing the recording. And then the cab settings, just use the stock cab. I don't remember which one it was, but a dynamic 421 and ribbon 121. I think that's what I used anyway, or it would have been a 57 or something like that there. Again, nice thing about the software here is that you can pick the microphones and things, and also the different cabs, you can change them over to the cab that you like, and also position the microphones where you'd like them to be. So if you wanted the proximity effect and the microphones a little further away, you can do that as well. Just really great software in order to create good guitar sounds. Like I said, it's my favorite one out of the various softwares that I've tried, and there's a ton of cabs available which you can kind of flick through and pick your favorite ones, and create different sounds, and they all do sound different. Alrighty, so that's how it worked in Amplitube. And like I said, when I did the second guitar part, I actually used the Engel amp. But before I go to that, this is the amplifier that I used for the lead sound, and all I did was either turned on the T-Rex, either on boost or with the distortion circuit on as well, or the TS style pedal, the green pedal, just to give that little extra bit of drive. And what I found was that the amplifier did need that, the amplifier model did need that in order to create a good lead sound with lots of sustain and get my pinch harmonics and things like that. Now for the clean sound, I used the clean amp, which is actually built into here, which is that one there, and it's basically a take on a Fender amp. And when I actually did the recording, I actually used two amplifiers. This I used on one side, and I used the tremolo circuit here as well, because that actually added a nice feel to that that sound. But there is another clean amp which I used, which is this one here, which is based on a Vox amp. So this gave a contrasting sound. It was a little bit brighter, a little bit kind of, the punch was a little bit different. But like I said, I used the compressor in order to compress the clean signal, the clean guitar signal, so that I had a really, really good clean signal going into Auria. All right, I shall flick back to Auria, and I'm going to take this out of the chain here because we don't actually need it. So that was my process. All I would do is go into Auria, arm the track that I wanted to arm, and I knew that I was going to be recording to that, and recorded my part to that track. And then I'd go to the next track just like I would on a computer. Auria is great as well because it really allows you to do all of your audio editing and kind of cutting and stuff. So if I wanted to edit this part down, then I can put the cursor where I need it to be, the timeline, and then hit split. That's going to split it. Then I can delete this part here, and that's going to take it out of the session. So really allowed me to kind of like clean up the whole session as well. So to record in Auria, all you need to do is go to a track, and like I said, you just hit the record button and it arms the track just like you would do in a regular DAW. You also have the option of setting the BPM, the tempo, the time signature, the count-in, metronome level, whether you hear the metronome on playback or playback and the recording as well. Does pretty much everything you need it to. So the recording process is what it is. You go through it and basically kind of just record the various parts, and then you have a track at the end of it. Then it was time to mix, and my initial thought was let me just try and mix it in here. I didn't really have much experience of mixing in Auria, so it was a real pleasure to find out that it was easy to do, and all the tools that I needed were in here. So, like I said, I had exported the drum tracks into Auria here, and I'm going to solo everything up so that you can have a listen to just the drum track that I created here. So I'll go back to the beginning of the session. And it sounds really, really good now, doesn't it? So what I had done was I went into the individual elements of the track and I mixed them first. I leveled them out. but I also applied effects. So when I go into the channel strip here, so if I go to the kick drum here, there are a couple of things that I wanted to do to the kick drum in order to get it sounding the way I wanted it to. So if I turn off the other elements and just have the kick drum playing here for a second. Now the actual distortion that you hear in the kick drum, that was already on the track on X Drummer, and for some reason I wasn't able to get rid of the that sound, but I just kind of left it in there, and it was fine with me. So I didn't kind of worry about it too much. It kind of gave it a punchy sound. And then what I did was just EQ'd it a little bit, just gave it a little bit of low end here and high end as well. I just boosted those and then put some compression into there. The compressor is very intuitive, just did my ratio, did my compression, and did the makeup there, and it's an auto makeup, so that worked really well. And then I put the high pass filter in there so it didn't affect the low end too much and really bring it up too much. So if I actually turn off the EQ and compression for a second and play the track, then add in the elements, started to shape that sound. And then I did the same thing for the snare drum as well. So here I added in a little bit more top end and boosted around 900 Hertz and put some compression on there as well. So I also put the expander on there because it just seemed to kind of bring out the sound. The other thing that I did was I put a convolution reverb onto here as well. Auria does have plugins as well, so you can put reverbs and things like that onto the sound, and I just picked the snare room there. So again, if I turn everything off, this was how it originally sounded. So pretty good. But then I added in the expander, the EQ, the compressor, and that made a big difference. Then if I add the reverb, added in a nice deep sound to that. So worked really well for shaping the sound. Now the sound of the drums was pretty good anyway, so there wasn't a whole lot that I needed to do, and I was able to create that whole drum track just by doing some very, very quick EQ moves here. Now I basically done the same thing when I got to the guitar parts. So in the guitars, didn't do too much, just took off a little bit of the high end there and put a stereo delay on it. My philosophy with guitar sounds is I try and dial them in as close as possible to the final sound that I can before recording, so that I don't need to EQ or anything. Now, with software amplifiers, there's usually a little bit of top end sizzle, which you kind of find, and I like a nice rounded sound, so I wanted to roll off some of the high end, which is what I did with the EQ here. So if I solo up this guitar part here, you can see how it sounds. And you have that delay trail going on. Now I can turn off the delay as well. So you've got a really good control over what effects you have. I like to put delay on my rhythm guitars as well as my lead guitars, so that's exactly what I did. And like I said, I put a little bit of EQ in there, and I'll show you pre and post. So if I turn off the EQ, So what I'd done with the EQ there is I'd rolled off some of the high end just to kind of round it off at the end, and then I boosted the mid-range as well. So here I'm boosting about 500 and then about 1.5k, and I haven't done a lot. It's literally just a tiny bit there, maybe 2 or 3 dB each, but it really kind of shaped the sound of my guitar, and it sounded nice and round, exactly how I would mix it on my Mac. So again, here's the sound again. Original sound. And my EQ'd sound, much fuller. Alright, if I add in the guitar on the other side, which is the Engel amp, so you were just listening to the Soldano amp. So if I put the Engel with it, this is how it sounds. Which is kind of cool. And I just realized that I turned off the delay on that left hand side. So here's the sound of the Engel by itself. So pretty cool, and same moves there as well. A little bit of high end I rolled off, and then I added in a little bit of mid-range there into the signal as well, just to give it that kind of rounded sound. So without, and then with, it creates a much bigger sound. And then I basically just went through the other parts as well and EQ'd them how I wanted, also panned them to the appropriate places. So I had the rhythm guitars panned hard left and hard right there, and then the other guitars that I'd done, the other rhythm guitars and stuff, I'd panned to various places as well. I was able to do this with the drum kit as well, so the snare is slightly to the side there, the hi-hat is a little bit further, and then the cymbals are a little bit wider still, and then the ride is further wide as well. So by doing this I was able to kind of get all of my tracks done. And again, with the harmonies I did exactly the same thing, basically just created tracks for those and then recorded them and then panned them. So if I just solo up the harmonies here. So a little bit more of the delay in the mix there, and basically I did that because I wanted the delay to really come through on the lead guitar parts. And then the final part of it was to do the bass guitar as well, which I did, like I said, in Ampltube as well. And that was a fun process to do. And again, initially I had done the bass guitar part on my Mac and thought, yeah, that's fine. But then I got thinking, you know what, I really should do the bass part on here as well. So I did the bass part on here as well, which was awesome to do. So the amp that I used for this, again, went into Ampltube, and in here it actually has a bass amp which is kind of based on Ampeg style amplifier there. And this is the one that I used to create that bass track, and I just played it again, you know, just plugging into the JOGG did a fantastic job to create all of those wonderful guitar and bass sounds. And then I just added in some compression just to kind of you know, bring out the nuances of the bass. I had some compression going on Ampltube as well when I did that, so I would click the decomp on when I was doing the recording. And then the rest of the process was literally just mixing. It was doing all the leveling work there. The great thing about Auria as well is it has mix buses as well. So these channels here, they're actually buses. So I'd actually routed some of the signals to this. So if I go back to the drum track here, you can see that the output is selected as S6, which is subgroup 6. And basically I could do some further processing in that subgroup. So if I go to subgroup 6 and click the FX, I've got some stuff going on there as well. So I've got a little bit more compression, a little bit more EQ on the overall amplifier, and then I have a reverb going on the entire kit to give it a little bit more space and room. So the one I used for this was a short room. So I wanted to kind of create the feel of the drum kit being in a room. And I did the same thing for the guitar parts as well. They went to subgroup 1, and in there just had a little bit of EQ going on just to shape it a little bit further. Now, like I said, the other thing that you're able to do in Auria is track automation. Now, this was a really, really powerful function to have, because there were various places within the track that I wanted to kind of make some fades and stuff. So I was actually able to go into there and actually create a fade out. And you can do this by basically going into the track and selecting volume, pan, aux1, aux2, mute, saturation, phase, etc., etc. When you just do the audio, the default mode, it just shows the actual WAV file there. But once you go into volume, and then you can create different points in order to actually do track automation of all kinds, which is fantastic. And because it's all done by touch, you know, it's quite intuitive to do and relatively easy to do. He says not being able to move that marker. Okay, there you go, got it, yay! And it also has like undo functions and all sorts of things like that. So really, really easy to kind of do stuff within the software. So there you go, guys. That's how I created an entire track on my iPad. Yeah! So there you go. Awesome sounds from my guitar. Playing had a little bit to do with it, I guess. But these things made it really easy for me to do my thing with a super mobile rig, and it's something I've wanted to do for a while. I've wanted a really super mobile rig for when I travel and stuff, and you know what, combination just works for me. You know, this is super compact, don't need to take anything bigger than this. You know, you can plug a Hotone Ampero straight into an iPad as well, but obviously the form factor is a little bit bigger and stuff, so you know, just for kind of travel purposes and compact purposes, just love this thing, and the apps does the job really well. And you know, Ampltube on here sounds phenomenal. There are other amp sims that you can use as well, you know, whatever takes your fancy. I just love the sound of Ampltube, so I used that one, and then mixing it in Auria was an absolute pleasure. All of the tools you need are in the basic version of Auria. Well, I say basic version, it still costs like 30 bucks or 40 bucks or whatever it is. There is a pro version where you can have MIDI and all sorts of things, but the combination of that and also Xdrummer just worked really well to actually create the track. Xdrummer was a little bit tricky to actually kind of get used to, you know, chopping up loops and then placing them in the right place. It's like I said when I was kind of showing you how I did that, I have a tendency to play, you know, on the push, so it was a little bit of an effort to actually get all the timing for the drums absolutely perfect how I wanted it, but the end result was great and I enjoyed doing it. Took a little while longer than, you know, with Superior Drummer or Easy Drummer or something like that, but hey, good experience, right? So when I travel and if I want to kind of have a mobile rig, I'm going to be taking these guys with me from now on. There you goes. Alright guys, if you enjoyed that, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification, and also please do give the video a thumbs up and share it with your friends on social media. Yay! In the meantime, have a fantastic day. I will be back for more really soon, so I will see you really soon. Have a great day guys. I'll see you later.